Hello seniors, this is the second recorded video in which I'm going to summarize for you the materials that we covered during term 3, the second week. In the first recorded video, we discussed together the main features of plants. Then you learn the differences between photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Plus, we discussed one of the features that allow plants to survive successfully on land, which is preventing water loss by two ways, cuticle and stomata. In the second week, you learned about the other three adaptations, which are developments of roots and specialized conducting tissues, reproduction without water, development of flowers and seeds. Plus, in this session, we will discuss the different parts of seeds. You should be able to label them, describe the functions of seeds, and what do seeds need to germinate. Finally, you will learn the comparison between, or how to compare between fruits and vegetables. So let's start with the adaptations that allow plants to survive successfully on land. As I told you, the first adaptation, preventing water loss by cuticle and stomata. Okay, we discussed this adaptation within the first recorded video. We will go through these three adaptations in today's session: development of roots and specialized conducting tissues, reproduction without water, and development of seeds and flowers. I'm going to start with number 3, which is reproduction with water. For reproduction of water, you have to know that land plants reproduce sexually without water because the sperms, which contains the male gametes, are enclosed and protected from drying by structures called pollen. For aquatic algae, they reproduce sexually. When sperms swim, it means that there is water. When sperms swim through water and fertilize egg. For plants, the sperm of most plants, notice for most plants, must be able to move without water because these plants live on land, okay? And we mentioned also here, we use the term most because in some cases, for example, for non-vascular plants, they cannot move without water, okay? There should be water. The sperm of most plants must be able to move without water. So how can they move? How are they protected from drying? By structures that are called pollen, okay? Now here, what is pollen? If you want to define pollen, is a protective because it's protecting the sperm. Reproductive structure, because this structure encloses what? The sperm. So pollen is a protective reproductive structure that contains male gametes, okay, which are the sperms. Here in this diagram, you can see, okay, different diagrams that show pollen, okay, how they look like under the microscope. Notice how some of them, for example, they have like spikes. This will allow them to attach to the fur of animals, okay? Some of them they don't have, but they can simply move with the wind. This diagram also here shows different pollen. Pollen could be carried by wind, insects, small birds, or humans, from male reproductive structures to female reproductive structure. Notice here, for example, this bee. The bee will take the nectar as a result, okay? Notice this diagram here, pollen carried by a bee. All of these yellow dots, they represent, okay, pollen. So this is simply the second adaptation, which is reproduction without water. How? Because the sperm are protected by pollen. The second adaptation, which is having roots and conducting tissues. Remember, I told you during the first session that when we are discussing the adaptations, actually we are discussing adaptations that are related to vascular plants. because you will learn later that there are two types of plants, non-vascular and vascular plants. So having true roots, having conducting tissues, they are related to vascular plants. So the third adaptation, developments of specialized structures such as what? Such as roots and conducting tissues. For roots, simply as you learned, okay, in lower grades, the functions of roots, how the roots will help plants to survive on land. What is the function of root? To absorb what? To absorb water, to absorb minerals, okay? So roots to absorb water and minerals from soil, okay? The second specialized structure, conducting tissues. There are two different types of conducting tissues, okay? We'll watch the first video. In this video, okay, you will see different examples of vascular plants, different examples of non-vascular plants. In the last minute of the video, okay, they will compare between a simple comparison, okay, between the two conducting tissues, xylem and phloem. The two conducting tissues, xylem and the phloem. So the first video will show different examples of vascular and non-vascular plants with the main difference between xylem and the phloem. Then we will watch another video that shows many differences between xylem and the phloem. So let's go through the first video first.
Segment 3, classification of plants. Before watching classification of plants, think about this. How might the environment affect a plant's physical characteristics?
Known plant species number more than 270,000. The plant kingdom claims the oldest living things on Earth and the largest. Plants shade us.
These are like functions of plants. Why are they
provide
important
oxygen for us to breathe, and they're a source of beauty. To scientists, they're also living organisms to be classified and understood. From a scientific point of view, what distinguishes a Tillandsia species from a Carnegie species? How do scientists go about classifying plants? Members of the plant kingdom are sorted into divisions, but before scientists choose a division, they break down the plant kingdom a little more. First, they want to know whether the plant is vascular or non-vascular.
Vascular or non-vascular?
The difference is in the way a plant absorbs water. Moss, liverworts, and other non-vascular plants have
mosses, liverworts, these are examples of non-vascular plants. Notice these small plants which can grow for a few millimeters only. These are examples of non-vascular plants. How they can absorb water or transport substances? They do not have conducting tissues, okay, which we are going to discuss. They can transport materials only from cell to cell, okay?
Have no roots. They absorb water through their surfaces. Vascular plants do have roots, as well as stems and leaves. They also have vascular tissue that runs from the roots through their stems.
These vascular tissues are the conducting tissues that we are going, okay, to compare between them. Listen carefully now. There are two conducting tissues, two vascular tissues, xylem and phloem, okay? Let's see the main difference between xylem and the phloem. They are transporting what?
And all the way to the tips of their leaves. The vascular tissue is made up of two black cells that carry water and nutrients. The vascular tissue that carries water and dissolved minerals from the roots to the stem and leaves is called xylem. The vascular tissue that carries dissolved sugars from the leaves to the roots is known as phloem. Phloem also carries stored food from the roots to other parts of the plant.
Okay. So
وهذه شوية لذة لأروع رائدة فضاء. لما ندخل.
Today we will be discussing the differences between.
Sorry. Okay. Now, for xylem and phloem, if you noticed, okay, the last minute within the video, both of them are vascular tissues. Both of them are conducting tissues. They are transporting materials, okay? The two types of conducting tissues that found within vascular plants, notice not non-vascular plants. Within the video, if you notice, they mentioned that non-vascular plants, they don't have roots. Non-vascular plants, they don't have vascular tissues. They are transporting materials from cell to cell. While vascular plants, they have true roots, stem, and leaves. Vascular plants, they have two types of conducting tissues, which are xylem and phloem. Now, what are conducting tissues? They are specialized tubes or vessels to transport water, mineral salts, organic compounds throughout the plant body, okay? Water and mineral salts are transported within xylem vessels. Notice this diagram here. The pink arrows, these pink arrows, they represent xylem, tubes or vessels or tissues that are transporting water and minerals. Okay, these pink tubes, I'm going to use the red color. So the pink or the red arrows, they represent what? They represent tubes that transport water and minerals, okay? Now here, losing of water from plants, it's another process. Actually, we'll discuss it later. It's called transpiration. What about the green arrows? The green arrows here represent phloem, tubes that transport food, transport nutrients. Okay, to be more specific, transport sucrose and amino acids. You will watch now another video. Instead of, okay, mentioning sucrose, they will mention glucose. It's okay, then the glucose actually is converted to sucrose. Anyway, so in general, food, nutrients, you can mention sucrose and amino acids or glucose and amino acids. So xylem transport water and minerals from where to where? Xylem transport water and minerals from roots to stem, then leaves. From roots, stem, then leaves. What about phloem? In phloem, plants will use the water, carbon dioxide, photosynthesis takes place, they make their own food. Now, different nutrients such as sucrose and amino acids, okay, are transported from roots to where they are going to be stored, okay? So from leaves to stem, or from leaves to stem, then roots. After that, when the plants need energy, the plants will translocate the stored food again from, for example, roots to leaves. So for xylem transports water and minerals from roots to stem and leaves. Notice in one direction, which is upward. But for phloem transport nutrients, phloem transport food, phloem transport sucrose and amino acids throughout the plant, from leaves to stem, then roots, or from where the food is stored to other parts of plants. So two directions, upward and downward, okay? This slide here, for example, shows xylem and phloem. within a cross-section in the stem. Xylem pipes carry water and minerals up only in one direction and act as support. Phloem pipes carry food up and down. Now, I'm not going to discuss the arrangement of xylem and the phloem, because while you are watching the second video, you will notice that they will mention the arrangement, okay? Because arrangement of xylem and phloem and cross-section in root or stem or leaves, they are not exactly the same. And even in stem, for example, later on you will learn the comparison between monocot and dicot plants, okay? So the way in which these conducting tissues are arranged, okay, they are not the same. So we will not go through the arrangement or how xylem and the phloem are arranged within specific part of a plant, whether it is the root, stem, or leaves. Today, just in general, okay, general comparison between xylem and the phloem. So xylem carries water from roots to stem and leaves, so only upward, one direction. Phloem carries food or nutrients, or you can be more specific, sucrose and amino acids from leaves or from where food is produced throughout the plant. So it could be in both directions, upward or downward. Okay? Let's refer to this table. Xylem, it carries water and minerals from roots to the remaining parts of plant body. Water and minerals from where to where? From roots to the remaining parts. Phloem, it translocates food. Translocate. Notice the term? Because sometimes, okay, the food is produced in the leaf, then phloem will carry food from leaf to stem or from leaf to root, translocation. Then when energy is needed, this stored food is translocated, okay? So it translocates foods from leaves to the remaining parts of plants. While you are watching the second video, I want you to notice two other differences between xylem and phloem. Until now, you learned that xylem transports water and minerals from roots to stem and leaves, so upward movement. Phloem transport sucrose and amino acids, or as they will mention in the video, glucose and amino acids throughout the plant, so upward and downward. While you are watching the video, I want you to notice two other differences between xylem and phloem. The first one, which one of them has thicker walls, and which one of them the functional cells are considered as living cells, okay? I want you to notice these two differences. Which one of them has thicker walls, and which one of them, the functional cells, they are considered as living cells, and which one they are considered as non-living cells. Yeah.
We could just say movement of water and minerals and movement of glucose and amino acids, but this is science, and so we like to have space.
You have here these two terms. Actually, later on, we will define these terms. Transpiration is the process of losing water throughout plants. Because of transpiration, actually, the water will keep in moving upward, okay? Now, here immediately you can notice the xylem and the phloem from the movement of substances. In the first tube, okay, the molecules are moving only upward. In the second one, upward and downward, which means that the tube to the left is to represent what? Xylem, while the one to the right to represent phloem.
Special terms to describe these processes. In this three-part video, we are going to look at the transport systems in plants for moving food, water, and minerals around. We have a beating heart and circulating blood, but what do plants do?
They don't
Cut a plant open and it doesn't bleed. So what happens instead? Plants have their own systems. They have a xylem, which moves water and solutes from the roots to the leaves. and a phloem, which moves glucose made in the leaves by photosynthesis and amino acids to the rest of the plant. Here are the xylem,
As I
and here are the
told you, the
phloem.
arrangement of
Notice
xylem
how
and
the
the
arrangement
phloem,
is
we are not
different
going to
in the
discuss it
stem and the
now.
roots. The xylem and the phloem are found in groups called vascular bundles, and the position of these bundles changes for different parts of the plant. Both the xylem and the phloem are made up of rows of cells that form a continuous tube running the whole length of the plant. The xylem vessels are made of elongated dead cells that are impermeable.
The xylem vessel is made up of what? Elongated, dead cells. Dead cells. The functional xylem, they are dead cells.
To water and have walls containing lignin, a woody material.
What about the thickness of the wall? Okay, they have thick walls. This is why xylem vessels also, they provide support.
Because of this, xylem vessels are tough, which is why the vascular bundles in the roots are in the center. They help prevent the plant being pulled out of the ground. They are also more protective in the center, whereas the stem has to resist being squashed and bent, and so it has the vascular bundle.
So this is enough, okay? Now, so again, xylem, it carries water and minerals from roots to the remaining parts of the body. The functional xylem cells, I use here the term functional xylem cells because there are like different stages. We have primary xylem, secondary. Yes, the one at the end in which it will be the functional xylem cells, they are non-living cells and they have thick walls. While phloem, it translocates food, translocates sucrose and amino acids from leaves to the remaining parts of plant body. The functional phloem cells are alive, they have thin walls. Now the last point, the movement in xylem is only in upward direction, while in phloem, the movement in phloem is in upward as well as downward direction, so it is throughout the plants. In this way, we covered two more adaptations. Development of roots and specialized conducting tissues. What are these conducting tissues? Xylem and phloem. Reproduction without water. How? Because they are protected within spores. Now, the last adaptation, development of seeds and flowers. The fourth adaptation, development of flowers and development of seeds. Again, today, just in general, later on in week 4, you will learn the structure of a flower in details, okay? You will learn about seeds later on in details. Today, just in general as an adaptation. So what are flowers? We can define them as reproductive structures. Why we are defining them as reproductive structures? Because they contain reproductive cells. What are the reproductive cells? Male reproductive cells and female reproductive cells. So pollen that contains the sperms plus egg cells, the female reproductive cells. Pollen, they contains the male gametes, while egg cells, they contain the female gametes. This diagram here, for example, shows two different flowers. Later on, as I told you, you will learn the structure of the flower. This thin, long part, which is called the stamen, okay? This is the male reproductive part. Here we have the anther and the filament, but I don't want to go through the structure as I told you today. Pollen are carried here actually, yes? Pollen with the sperm. And in this ovary, this is the female reproductive part, okay? Later on you will learn the exact names of each part. Here we have the egg cells. So flowers, they are reproductive structures which contain reproductive cells, pollen, and egg cells. Pollen contains male gametes, while egg cells, they contain the female gametes. Later on, again, you will learn exactly what is happening, the double fertilization, how the flower will change into fruits, okay? Each part, okay, it was previously what? As part of the flowers, but we are not going to discuss the double fertilization or what is happening today in general, just as an adaptation, okay? Flowers are reproductive structures. Why? Because they have both the male and female reproductive parts. Now, how can they help plants also? Because the flowers, because of their colorful, okay, they have colorful colors, the red color, the yellow color, so they attract insects, they attract birds, bats, and animals. When they attract insects, bats, birds, what will happen to the pollen? Okay, the pollen will be transferred within these animals from one plant to another plant, okay, for pollination. So this will make reproduction more efficient. Okay, this is what having flowers. Now what about seeds? They have seed. What are seeds? Seed are plant part that contains embryo. Do you remember when you learned the reproductive system in a human, the developments, okay, after fertilization, then we have the zygote. After the zygote, what do we have? The embryo, then the fetus. If you remember the difference between embryo and fetus, embryo, it was the first few weeks of development. So we will use this term not only for human or animals, also for plants. Embryo is the early stage in the development of plant. Embryo, you can see it like a small, tiny plant. Okay, you can imagine it like that, like a small plant. So it's the early stage in the development of plants. The main seed parts. There are three main seed parts of seeds. The first one, which is the outermost layer, the outermost layer, the seed coat. Okay, so the outermost one, the seed coat. Okay, now inside the seed, we have stored food. Stored food. I'm going to use the red, the blue. Okay, this is what the stored food. Now, this is what the embryo. Which is the early stage in the development of plants. When the seed coat is split, the embryo sprout, get out. Okay, it will start to grow. First, the root appears, then the shoot. So this is small embryo. After germination, it will start to grow, making what? Making a small, tiny plants, root, then stem, then shoot, which will form the stem and leaves. So these are the three main parts of seeds. The seed coat, the outermost part, the stored food, and the embryo, which is the early stage in the development of plants. Now, we will go through the functions and the needs for seeds to germinate. There are 4 functions for seeds: protection, nourishment, plant dispersal, and to delay the growth. Protection, nourishment, plant dispersal, and delayed growth. Let's start with the first function of seed, which is protection. The most important part of the seed is what? Is the embryo, because this embryo will make the smaller plants, will grow to form the root, then the shoot. So to protect the embryo, it is surrounded with what? With the seed coat. So protection, The seed coat, to be more specific, protects embryo inside the seed from what? From dehydration, from drying out, from diseases. So this will allow embryo to survive in unfavorable conditions, such as dryness, such as high temperature or freezing temperature. The second function of seed, nourishment. Immediately, once you hear the term nourishment, you always remember what? Nutrients. So you have to remember the stored food. Stored food in a seed supplies the embryo with the nutrients to allow it to grow and develop into a new plant. When we planted the seeds, okay, waiting for the plants to grow, these seeds, they need energy. This energy needs food, so they will start to use the stored food, okay? So seed provides protection, nourishment. The third function, plant dispersal. Dispersal simply means spreading, okay? To disperse, it means to spread. So by spreading of seeds or fruits from parents' plants to grow in new areas. There are different agents that help in seed dispersal. What are these agents? What are these things that help in spreading the seeds? As a result, spreading the plants to have plants in different areas. Wind can carry what? Light seeds, such as here, for example, the dandelion. The animals, okay, when seeds stick on their body. The water stream, the seeds will fall down, so the water stream will carry it from one area to another area. The fourth point, delayed growth. The seed will stay without germination, without growing, until all the conditions are favorable. What are the favorable conditions? It depends on the amount of water, it depends on the temperature. So if conditions are not favorable, seeds will not germinate, but the embryo survives. How the embryo survives? Okay, inside the seeds with the stored food, until conditions become favorable again. In this way, we finished, okay, the 4 adaptations. You can refer to your workbook and solve. The second page, you have the cover page, number 1. Then page 2, active reading, you have a paragraph. Then different questions that are related to it, okay? Let's go through the questions together. What key terms are defined in the first paragraph? What are their meanings? Refer to the first paragraph. Can you notice the bold terms? Seed, seed plant, embryo. So these are the key terms. So simply write the 3 key terms, seed, embryo, seed plants, and find their definitions from the paragraph. What is the function of a seed coat? You will find all of the answers, okay, within the second paragraph. This question, you can find it within the second paragraph. So the seed coat protects the embryo from drying out and from mechanical injury and diseases. About the next question, how does a plant embryo obtain the nourishment it needs for growth? Refer to this paragraph about nourishment. Most kinds of seeds have a supply of organic nutrients stored in them. Then, how is the meaning of the term dispersal indicated in the passage? Plant dispersal. Disperse means spread. Name 3 ways that the seeds may disperse. So the same paragraph. Wind, water, or animals. If seeds were unable to be dispersed, what 4 items would parents and offsprings compete for? They will compete for water, nutrients, light, and living space. Complete each statement by writing the correct term. A watertight covering called cuticle made it possible for plants to live. Number 2, Pores called stomata enable plants to exchange oxygen. A pair of specialized cells called guard cells borders each stoma. Okay, how did early plants obtain nutrients from Earth's rocky surface? You can refer to your textbook, page 504. There is one paragraph about this question, okay, about fungi, one symbiotic relationship. So read that paragraph and answer the question. Okay, and this one I will leave it for you as a homework. You can do it at home. Yes. The last point, we'll compare between fruits and vegetables. There are two different classification, or sometimes there is the familiar classification of fruits and vegetables. Yani we used to say that tomatoes, cucumber, they are what? They are vegetables. But actually, if we are going to use the botanical classification, it means to use the scientific name, the species of these organisms. So if we are going to use the botanical classification and not the familiar classification, all plants that have seeds, they are considered as fruits. So peas, beans, tomatoes, cucumber, they are what? Garlic, they are fruits because they have seeds. So the first slide here shows fruits, anything with seeds, such as garlic. We use, okay, to say that garlic, tomatoes, corn, beans, all of these are what? We used to consider them as vegetables, but actually they are fruit. Why? Because they have seeds. So garlic, tomatoes, cucumber, coconut, corn, plus of course all of the fruits that you already know. Apple, banana, mango, whatever. If they do not have seeds, without seeds, remove with here, yes, anything without seeds, so they are vegetables, such as lettuce, carrots, parsley, rosemary, and potatoes. If you refer to your workbook again, okay, you have an activity distinguishing fruits and vegetables. You can do it at home. It's a very simple one. Take different materials from your refrigerator. For example, apple, banana, green bean, potato, squash, tomato, and use plastic knife. You are adult enough, but still use a plastic knife. Compare the familiar and botanical classification you gave each fruit and vegetable. Compare the familiar and botanical classification you gave for each fruit and vegetable. The familiar, apple, banana, they are what? Fruits. But green bean, potato, squash, tomato, they are all vegetables. This is the familiar classification. But according to botanical classification, classifying the plants, okay, according to their scientific name, according to the species. So apple, banana, green bean, squash, tomato, they are all what? They are all fruits. Which fruits and vegetables did you classify differently? We classified differently according to the familiar classification and the botanical classification, the green bean, squash, and tomato. You can solve the second page also. Defend the classification you made for item 2. Item 2, which is banana, because they have seeds. Based on your data, when is a vegetable a fruit? When it contains seeds. Then you can add other examples, okay, other than the examples that you have in the previous page. Okay, so simply to compare or to distinguish between fruits and vegetables, fruits have seeds, vegetables without seeds. That's it for today. Take care of yourself, stay home, stay safe, and see you inshallah next time with the third recorded video and a new section. I'm going to end the session now. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.